Here we are with Mrs. Bolan. Right, we'll go to the question straight away. Right, June, do you still listen to Marc's music?
Oh yes, often. And I play it to my children who didn't like it at first.
Which has grown on them.
Yeah, yes. And now suddenly if they're in the bath with the wireless on, they come up and say, "Mummy, Mummy!"
Oh, yeah. Great. Right, did you and Marc ever have a song, not necessarily one of Marc's, that you would say that was our tune or song or record?
Not really, because our musical tastes were very diverse and we liked lots of old blues records and Al Jolson.
Al Jolson?
Yeah. Before your time.
Yeah, Mum liked that one.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Do you think Marc really knew how much his fans loved him?
I think he did. I think he did by the fact that they used to camp outside the house.
Yeah.
You couldn't get to the car when we used to live in Camden Gardens in Little Venice for all these children. And one night, a young girl came all the way from Scotland. And she was sitting on the doorstep when I got home, and she had bleeding feet. And she walked, and I thought, she was only about 14, and I thought, what's her parents? Oh, I just ran away. So I had to call the police and get her ferried home. But she was quite prepared to stay there for the duration.
Did she meet Marc?
No. And that was really sad, yeah.
Oh.
I mean, I took her in and gave a cup of tea, and
Yeah.
so she came into the house.
Yeah. Oh,
But that was the nearest she got.
Oh. Right. Do you think Marc would have been surprised that there are still T-Rex conventions going on 15 years after his death?
No, I think he would have expected it.
He would have loved it.
He would have loved it, and I think he thought it was his due.
Yeah.
Because he knew he was very special.
Oh, obviously, yeah.
And what he did, he'd still be doing it had he not been killed.
Yeah.
And he would have expected to be famous forever because that was in the league.
So he's up there somewhere watching.
Oh, absolutely, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Right, what is your favourite of Marc's singles?
Jeepster, I think. But I also, the Slider album is my favourite album.
Favourite album, right, yeah. Most people go for Electric Warrior.
Yeah. I like Electric Warrior because it was the first of him coming together as a thing. And then the Slider for me had slightly more sensitive songs on it.
Yeah. What would you say was your best album track? Out of all the albums, you know,
God. I don't know. Spaceball with Fisher I really like. I also like a single that was done many years ago called Hippie Sunbird.
Yeah.
Which was very, very special to me.
That one, yeah. That was a single.
It was a single, yeah. I don't think it did much. I mean, I'm not really au fait on what records did, but it was very special and the words were very beautiful.
Yeah. Do you ever get fed up or bored with people asking you about Marc Bolan?
No. I mean, it was a large part of my life.
Yeah.
A very important part of my life, and I learned tremendous amounts of lessons from it. And Marc learned a tremendous amount of stuff as well.
Yeah.
And so I don't mind. I mean, I work in London now, and I was getting on the train the other morning, and a man in a peaked hat and a British Rail uniform started to walk alongside me and kept looking at me like this. And I thought it was a pervert or a ticket inspector, and I had my ticket in my hand. And he followed me all the way down the main train station to the underground. And then he said, "Excuse me, are you June Bolan?" And I looked and I said, "Yes, I am." And he said, "Oh, I'm a great fan." And he's obviously married, a sort of middle-aged man doing his job. And so every morning now when I get on the train, he's there waiting for me as I get off. And I've given him a couple of photographs. So he's really happy. And I can see him waiting for me all in his uniform. Very sweet.
Great.
And I still don't know his name. I did shake hands with him. I don't know.
You're never bored of it then? Yeah. So I've got what was Marc like at home when he was away from the bright lights and not writing music and just being a straightforward husband, so to speak?
He was never straightforward about anything, ever. And he always wrote, even at home, always. But he was great, bone idle.
Yeah.
I mean, the world had to be done for him. But great fun, and an amazing sense of humour, which...
And never
I really liked letting people.
Yeah.
But he'd go off into his music room and he'd spend all day there, or perhaps all night there. And he kept hours according to his hours, really.
Right, worked around it.
Yeah.
Right, hang on. I'm just going to go back. Just rewind it, see how it's come out. I won't get no sound, but make sure. And we're off again.
Running.
Here we are, the cat's joined us now.
She's called Flute.
Flute. Musical.
Yeah.
Right, there we go. Right. To my way of thinking, the true T-Rex and the best, as far as I'm concerned, was Marc Bolan, Mickey Finn, Bill Legend, Steve Curry, Tony Visconti, June Bolan. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I would, because after all that began to fall apart and other people were brought in, I think the music became searching, became desperate, rather than he knew where he was going before.
Yeah, direction sort of
And
thing.
he knew what he wanted. And then suddenly it all became fragmented. And he wanted that. He wanted that again. And he kept bringing people in, and it didn't work again.
It didn't work. No, that was...
And it was very sad for me, because I wasn't living with him then.
No.
I was outside looking in, and I wanted to shake him and say, look,
Yeah.
you had a formula that really did work,
Yeah.
and now you've blown all these people out. And, okay, some died, but
to me it's fairly obvious, because that's, we used to say, it went up to about the split, what would you say, about half a slider?
yeah.
As I say, then he did.
Before tanks, and then tanks started to get fragmented.
Yeah, that's right, yeah, so, yeah, I was agreeing with that as well. Right, what have we got it? Was Marc ever nervous or apprehensive before going out on stage? Or?
Oh yes, we went, not normally, in normal, I mean, a gig's a gig, and he'd get hyped up for it and go for it. But we were in Japan, in Tokyo, and it was an enormous gig, and neither of us had ever experienced anything like an earthquake before, having been in Los Angeles for a lot where they get earthquakes in San Francisco and things like that. So we went to the Budokan, which is the big gig there, and we were backstage and just preparing to go on, and we'd been there, did sound checks and a couple of hours and stuff. And then it was, the first band went on, and then it was Marc's turn. And suddenly, we were all in the dressing room with friends and hangers-on and all sorts of people, and the lights started to swing. And I looked at Alfie, who was Marc's minder, well, both of our minder. I said, Alf, what is it? He said, it's a bloody earthquake. I said, there's a stupid, an earthquake. It's in Japan. He said, they have them all the time. Well, I didn't know. And as soon as Marc heard earthquake, and then everything started to move, the whole building moved. And we were completely, even, look, it's giving me goosebumps now.
Yeah, that's right.
Thinking about it. The panic, we all laid on the floor, completely flat, and they were like 2 minutes to going on. And there was this rumble, like you could feel it coming up through the floor.
Yeah.
And it trembled all your body. The lights were swinging, the chairs, they had armchairs in this sort of reception-y place, and they started to slide. And Alfie, who's a great big, like 6'5" huge man, we were all lying on the floor, flat as pancakes. And then it suddenly passed and the lights stopped swinging and just went straight like that. And then Alfie got up and said, right, you're on. Well, Marc's set normally lasted an hour and a half. They got through it in 45 minutes. They were going, no chat in between, straight from one song to the other, instant minute. And they were back in the dressing room in 45 minutes. And then Marc looked at Alfie and said, get us home. And home then was the Hilton in Tokyo Hilton. And we were on the 10th floor. I said, Marc, I don't want to go up there, it might all fall down. So we spent the night on the ground floor, just in case.
I was going to say, what an introduction, an earthquake, just before you come on.
Yeah.
How were the fans? Were they...
Japanese people they have, I saw a programme on television recently about earthquakes in Japan, and they have 68 or 69 a year. Yeah, 5 of which are usually devastational. They lose buildings and people. And the rest are tremors. But if you've never felt a tremor, it feels like the world's ending.
That's right, yeah.
Because you have no experience of it.
Oh, right. Well, that's an interesting one. So that would that be the only time he's ever been nervous? Would he take all the rest of his...
Oh, the rest of his
would be in his stride?
Yeah, absolutely. No, he never got free before going on.
No, he
because it's what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
it's all the months of rehearsals, the months of writing, the recording.
That's where the tension was, but
And then it went out.
that was the icing on the cake sort of thing going out.
Yeah.
Right, Scott, we've got here. Mark obviously had a sharp sense of humour. Did he ever play practical jokes on you? Jump out from behind the curtain or whatever?
No, he wasn't. He wasn't really a practical joker. He just had a really good wit. So he wasn't like water over the door job, things like that.
No. So just a general.
Yes, just a very good humour.
Right. As long as you knew Mark, did he always have that premonition of an early death?
Yes, always. I didn't know. When Mark and I had lived together for 2 years, and then I decided to take him home to see my parents. And he got on really well with my parents, and the first evening he came to the house, we spent the whole evening in the kitchen with my mum, and they chatted and chatted, and I spent the evening in the sitting room with my dad, and we were chatting. And that was that, and we said goodbye, we had supper all together, and then we went home. And then the day Mark died, the night he was killed, in the morning, my mother rang and then told me that the first day she met Mark, he told her that he wouldn't live till he was 30. And my mother said, oh, don't be ridiculous, Mark, you've got a #1 hit, you're 20 odd years, you're a young man, you've got your whole life in front of you. And he said, Het, I won't see 30. And my mother never told me that.
And he never spoke to you about it?
No, never.
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 Oh, that's right.
Yeah, but he told my mum.
He told your mum?
She's quite a special lady, isn't she?
Yeah. Bit of an exclusive there. Oh, right. Was there anything that really annoyed Mark, i.e. squeezing the toothpaste in the middle or anything like that in general, everyday life?
No, he wouldn't notice him.
He was just oblivious to that.
They were practical things.
Yeah.
He wasn't practical.
He wasn't practical. No.
He was creative.
Yeah, and that was it. Yeah.
If there wasn't any toothpaste, then he'd moan.
Yeah. Just live for his art sort of thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, there's one that I'm always asked. Although he sometimes he had the makeup on and looked effeminate, I'm pretty convinced all that was just showmanship, and he was just an ordinary bloke as far as I'm concerned. I hear people say, "Oh, he's a puff," blah 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 blah.
He never was a puff.
He just said it.
And also, he never wore makeup until I knew him.
Yeah.
I mean, I did. We were in Top of the Pops, his first Top of the Pops, and I had, because I have stage makeup, and I had a tube of glitter, and I put it on. He said, "What are you doing?" I said, "It'll look great under the lights. It'll just catch." And I used to wear false eyelashes. In those days, you wore false eyelashes, and I had a little tube of eyelash glue because sometimes they'd fall off, so you repair them. And I said, "Just sit down a minute," and I put a tear. It wasn't all that blob.
So I remember that. Was that hot love?
Yeah, I just put a tear of glue.
Yeah.
And I said, "Put your head back," and I tipped the tube out, and then made him lean forward and tapped his chin so the loose would drop off. And it was this perfect teardrop of glitter, and that was the first time, and that's how it happened.
So right. So he was all that was just all the front, really.
No, it was just showmanship. It's like David, the same thing.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Just right.
It's creating images.
That's right. Yeah. Oh, I always saw it as that, but a lot of people didn't want to see it as that. That's why. Must be. Apart from having plenty of hits, was there any other goals in Mark's life, and was there any other ambitions?
No, I think he would have liked to have gone on to make films. I mean, apart from Ball to Boogie.
What films about?
Films. I mean,
what musical?
Well, he had such an. I mean, he would have liked to make science fiction films. And do music.
I think he did write some music for a science fiction film.
Yeah.
Billy Super Duper, was it?
Yes, but it never came to fruition.
Another one of his.
And once he started, that was when all the band were changing. So there was no direction and nobody to give input really, to just say, look, this is what you've got to do.
Yeah. Because he had a lot of little projects that he started and didn't finish, wasn't
he? Yes, absolutely. So it became fragmented. But that's what he would have liked to have done.
Yeah. Yeah, films. Oh. I've got here. What was Mark's favourite flowers?
Gardenias.
Gardenias. That's quite.
It's a white. Most people can't grow. You can't grow them in gardens really.
No.
They're sort of hot house plants, and they're white. They look like camellias, but they have this extraordinary smell.
Yeah.
Very heavy. And the petals, the white petals, are very thick. Very beautiful.
Very beautiful. What do you think Mark was most proud of? suppose it must be a lot.
I don't know. I mean, each project he did that worked, he was very proud of. I don't think you could say that really. I mean, he was proud of the fact that he'd made it
Big.
Against all adversity, really.
Yeah.
Coming from a little home and a little school and skiving off school.
Yeah, working class background.
No education, as such, no formal education.
No, he didn't have thought, but how do you choose to? I'm sure he could have been academically.
Yes, but he wanted more than that. I mean, he read a tremendous amount. Always read.
Did you more or less teach him to read and write, I heard once?
I didn't teach him to write.
Not to write.
Taught him to read.
To read?
Yes, because I used to buy books all the time.
Some say slightly dyslexic.
Well, you could see by his writing in his spelling.
Yeah.
But I mean, he wrote phonetically. He wrote as one spoke.
Yeah.
So how most children write, in fact, before they learn the formal spelling.
That's what the grammar sort of thing.
Yeah. He didn't care about that. He just wanted the words down.
He knew what he meant and he was putting it down, sort of thing. Yeah. Was there anything else that Marc was interested in, or would have liked to have got involved in, apart from, or have already really covered that, haven't we, with the films?
Yeah. There's
nothing else apart from music or poetry that was really interested in.
Yeah. No, he was just very spiritual and was quite inquisitive about things.
Right. Well, I've covered. Did Marc ever have any pets?
Yes, we had a flute, another flute.
Another flute?
Only this one's a red Burmese. Shut up. And the one we had was a lilac Siamese, lilac point. And it was called flute. And this one's called flute.
So cats were his...
Cats were, yes.
Were his pets?
We never had dogs.
Never dogs or anything like that? No. Would you have liked anything else?
No, he liked cats because he found them quite spiritual, and oriental cats, especially because they have loud voices and
vocal.
Yeah, and they let you know what they want.
What they want.
And they're quite demanding.
Right. Did you ever, or have you ever, visit Marc's grave?
Oh yes. I find it incredibly depressing.
Yeah.
I think it's very sad because, firstly, he didn't want to be cremated. He wanted to be buried so people could go and sit and chat to him. But I had no say in that. It was a parental decision.
Yeah,
so his parents, not mine. And also in the Jewish faith, they only believe in cremation.
That's right, yeah.
Which made me very sad. And then I went up and there was this little thing on a stick that said where he was. And apparently people keep stealing stuff.
That's right.
So if anybody goes up and puts something nice there, it's gone within half an hour. So that's awful. But the nicest place is the tree at Barnes where he was killed. And that for me is a greater memorial than where his ashes are.
That's right.
Because it's beautiful and you get all these children up there and the whole tree is decorated, and on the anniversary of his death on the 16th September, there are always kids up there with little amplifiers and guitars. And
I'd say that's been cut down now, hasn't it?
Yes, so you told me that, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's been cut down, but you still think you'd prefer people visiting the tree rather than... Yeah.
But he wanted to be buried. He wanted to be buried, have a seat there so people could go and sit and chat.
Chat to him. Yeah. But maybe nobody else knew that then.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it was always his wish. I'm sure he must have. I don't suppose he may not have told his parents.
No.
And then also when parents are in a state of shock, they do what the normal family, whatever the family
tradition is. Yeah,
absolutely.
That's right. I've got some other questions from other fans. Well, we've covered the flowers. There's a question here from Joan. Apparently a question a lot of fans have been asking. Do you think you would ever got back with Marc?
Yes, ultimately, yes. I mean, we had lunch.
Would sort of come to the senses.
Well, no, not really. I think we just regrew, if you know what I mean.
Turned the full circle.
Yes, and we had lunch in June. He died in September. And at the music therapy luncheon, and I was there with other friends, and he was there with other friends. And as we left, he came up and he said, "Get in the car with me," and we both went off and spent the day together. Which was really nice, and nobody knew where Marc was. All his office were trying to find him. And Gloria was in America then, and he was obviously very lonely and not very happy with Gloria or with the situation. But I still didn't feel that I could have offered him anything, then I was still trying to organise my life. If I go back into it, it would be just like it was.
Yeah.
And I don't want that. But I think we would have, because we spent a lot of formative years together.
The chemistry was still there, so.
Oh yes, without that.
Yeah.
You know, once you love like that, you don't ever stop loving them.
No, that's right.
Even if you don't see somebody and you can't live with them, that feeling inside.
Still there. Do you think it was for both of you as well?
Oh yes, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you could see how we were together.
Yeah. Yeah. I've got a question here from Brenda. Would you say when you first met Mark, was it love at first sight?
It was a bang in the head at first sight. It was very extraordinary. I was working at Blackhill Enterprises that used to manage the Floyd when Sid Barrett was in them. And Mark came in, this scruffy little, with greased back hair. You know, curly hair and greased back hair. And he came in and I said, yes, can I help him? He said, I want to be managed by you lot because you managed Sid Barrett. And that was it. And so I buzzed into Peter and Andrew, Peter, Jen and Andrew King, and not wanting to see them. And all the time I was sitting outside at my desk and I was doing work, and I kept getting this like zinging in my head. And it was like electric shocks. And anyway, he left and he went back to Wimbledon where he was living at his parents' house. And within half an hour of him being at home, the phone rang and I answered it, and it was Mark. He said, could I see you now? Can you come over to Wimbledon? So I spoke to Peter and Andrew, and they said, I'll go over, June, because we want to sign a contract with him. Just, you can make it all right. And I went over. It was about 3 in the afternoon, and it was a beautiful sunny day. And and his parents were at work, and I knocked on the door. And he said, oh, come into the garden, and we sat in the back garden. And we had muesli. And then he got out of his back pocket, so I got something for you. And it was the most beautiful love poem.
This was just a few hours after that.
3.5 hours.
Yeah, just.
And I was living with somebody at the time that I'd lived with for 4 years. And I went back to the office and spoke to Peter and Andrew. I said, no, it was nothing to do with the business, it was to do with me. And I said, I have to go home now. So I went back to my flat where I was living with a really lovely man, very nice man, still a very dear friend. And I said, I'm leaving. And he said, what do you mean we're going on holiday? I said, no, I'm leaving. He said, what do you mean? I said, I've met somebody and I'm leaving. He said, where are you going to live? I said, I don't know. Because Mark was living at his mum's, I was living with another man.
Yeah.
So I had a van, a little Comma cob. And I went round to his house that evening with some blankets, and we spent 4 nights on Wimbledon Common, because we had nowhere to go.
No.
And he did his work in the day, and we parked on Wimbledon Common at night, and that was our house.
That was your house for 4 days.
And within a week I found the attic flat in Blenheim Crescent.
Oh, okay.
28 and 6 a week, old money.
So,
Not even a pound.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
20 shillings to a pound.
Oh yes they were. 28 and 6, £1 8 and 6.
£1 8 and 6. 30 god mil.
Yeah.
Blimey. Right.
And it was hard to find.
Yeah, I bet them days in the other. Was Mark a romantic? Was he?
Yes, very.
Very.
I mean, just
Well, it must have been the little love poems. Did you get
always,
poems like that all the
always,
time?
and they'd be under your pillow, or you'd open the drawer and there'd be something stuck in it. Yeah.
Did he ever write a song for you, or did you ever inspire him to write a song?
Well, Jeepster was written for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. It seems odd, but it is, and I really like Jeepster. I like the words to it.
Yeah, and that was written. That was there any others?
No. Life's a Gas.
Yeah.
That's the Slider album.
Yeah.
Yeah. And those two.
Well, it's a B-side of Jeeps as well. So.
Oh, is it? Oh,
yeah.
Well, that's so fine. Well, I didn't know that. Well, they were both written.
I think.
Yes, I didn't know. You're the expert.
Pretty sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that.
But I know it was on the Slider album.
Yeah.
And Life's a Gas is what he did on that Cilla Black show.
Yeah.
If you ever saw it.
Yeah, I saw that. At that time.
Yeah.
Oh, right. What did Mark do to annoy you?
Not really. I mean, you just had to spend 24 hours a day doing for him.
That's right. As long as you cope with that.
Yeah.
That was it.
I mean, that's why we never had children at the time.
Yeah.
Um,
Too busy getting the career going.
Well, yes, and he needed all the input you could give.
Yeah. So you would have had children.
But he
later
wasn't
on.
a ratty person, and you didn't row.
No.
You know, you didn't like argue over who's doing the dishwashing. And, do you know what I mean?
No,
Because it didn't occur.
Supplementary.
Had nothing to do with it.
Yeah. Right. What was Mark's favourite food?
Anything I cooked at the time.
Yeah.
And we were vegetarian for, well, I was vegetarian for 12 years, and he was vegetarian from when I met him until I left, I suppose.
Yeah.
I used to make great carrot pie.
Carrot pie.
Yeah. And I've lost the recipe, so I don't know how to do it anymore.
Carrots and a bit of pastry.
No, it's not. It's very special, and it came out like a souffle.
Did it?
Yeah.
Right. Could Mark cook himself, or did he ever cook?
Oh, don't you cook.
No?
I mean, you're lucky if you could do a toast.
Blimey.
Burn a boiled egg.
Well, it goes back to that practical thing, just not practical.
Totally not. And if he's hungry, somebody would feed him. Or he'd have crackers and peanut butter.
Yeah.
Something that you didn't have to do anything,
with. Yeah. Right. I've got the others covered. Do you have a visit Mark was? Well, if Mark was still alive today, what do you think he'd be doing?
Oh, yeah, I think he'd have done a cycle with the band I call the Horrible Band.
Yeah.
You know, the second sort of class of people. And I think he'd have found his feet.
Yeah, and got it. Well, he was on the brink of a
yeah,
comeback when
exactly,
he died.
and he'd got himself physically together.
Yeah.
He wasn't so overweight.
No, that was the drugs, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Drugs
well,
and
drink.
drink.
Alcohol. He drank brandy by a pint.
Yeah.
And champagne, and it's just... And being little, you know, small of frame, you can't do that.
No.
Not on a constant basis. And the other thing is that when I left, all the people around him were employed people. So they were yes men.
Mm.
Whereas I wasn't.
No.
And if something upset me or I could see him doing something awful, I'd stand up and fight for that. I'd tell him, whereas other people wouldn't.
No. No. So.
And it becomes very important when you get that famous to have somebody with their feet on the ground that could say, look, you're fucking up. You've got to do something about it.
Yeah.
Or let me help you do something about it. Or together we can do something about it.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're surrounded by all these people you employ,
So the yes men.
they all want their jobs.
Yeah.
And if they said no, he'd say, well, off you go. I'll get something else.
Yeah. Did he need a little bit of, not so much, maybe bullying into the right direction? He'd maybe just be off a little bit. And
Well, it's guidance. I mean, it was guidance really. And if you knew him well enough, you could actually
guide with that.
approach it properly without it coming from you, if you know.
That's right, because he had this big ego and he
Yeah.
couldn't really.
And he would never own up that you'd pointed him in the right direction, no matter who it was.
No, yeah.
It was always his idea. But that I didn't mind, as long as it turned out right.
Turned out right, yeah.
Whatever way you had to go around doing it, if it turned out right, then you served your purpose.
That's right. Yeah.
It's no good saying, I did this for Marc Bolan. I mean, you know, Marc did what he did.
Did he just helped him along with it?
Yeah. So it was shove here and there.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, great. Well, I've got it. There was often sexual connotations in Mark's music and his performance. Was he highly sexually motivated, or was it just something he done to spice up?
He was not a very intimately sexual person. I mean, in terms of making love.
Right.
I mean, at home. But he had a wonderful mind, and he would see all these lovely images, and he put them into words.
Yeah.
He was a good lover, and very kind, and
Yeah.
very sensitive.
Yeah. So there's all these.
But all his like rude things, there's certain lines in songs that are like rude and things like that. That was all mostly mind's eye.
Mind's eye. Oh, right. Oh, I think we've more or less covered everything. Yeah.
Well done.
We've got some covered that. Apart from the plenty of trips, we don't think that was not. Was anything else? That's it. Anything else you want to add?
Yeah.
No other exclusives?
I hope you all have a lovely evening, or day, whenever you're going to watch this.
Yeah, well, the next 29th of May, which is
next weekend.
next weekend.
Yeah. All right.
So, okay then.
That's
All right, thank you very much, Jim.
Well done, Alan.